Welcome to the Renegade Health Boss podcast, where we push the boundaries of what's possible in health and wellness. I'm your host, Heather Gray, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And each week we dive deep into the world of physical, mental, spiritual health, biohacking, relationships. But we're not just talking about the basics. I'm bringing you conversations with the true renegades, experts who are challenging the status quo in their fields, breaking barriers, and uncovering the real truth behind what it takes to live an incredible, joy-filled, and optimized life. If you're ready to step out of the ordinary and step into a life of extraordinary health and happiness, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey to becoming your own Renegade Health Boss. And before we jump in, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
You're already empowering your patients to lead healthier, more vibrant lives. As a practitioner, you're at the forefront of extending their health span, promoting strength, vitality, and overall wellness. It all begins with the right support, trusted, high-quality nutritional supplements. At MHP Vitamins, we provide premium, practitioner-grade supplements designed to support the unique needs of your patients. Whether they're fighting inflammation or boosting energy or enhancing immune function, our scientifically backed formula helps them thrive. As a trusted practitioner, your recommendations make a significant impact. At MHP Vitamins, we're committed to providing you with the tools to continue supporting your patients on their journey towards ideal health. The premium supplements are carefully formulated to target specific health concerns and deliver the essential nutrients your patients need to thrive. Dedicated to making sure your practice runs effortlessly by offering top-tier customer care, same-day shipping, and the efficacy of our new office and warehouse. Through our affiliate program, you can extend these benefits directly to your patients and provide them with trusted, high-quality products while building a valuable partnership that supports both you, your patient's health span, and your practice. Join the growing community of health professionals who trust MHP Vitamins to empower their patients' health journey. Together, we can support wellness, one patient at a time.
Hey everyone, today's episode is a little bit different. As a lot of you may know, Beth committed suicide not too long ago. By the time this episode comes out, it'll probably been about a month. And the world, the health world is definitely still rocked from it. I know I'm rocked from it. So this is a little bit of a trigger warning, and a little bit of another opportunity just to be able to talk about suicide openly, mental health issues. I meant to look this up beforehand, but I'm in it now. I recently heard that one of the second I just recently got exposed to mold, and the brain fog has been unreal. And I've been healing slowly. The biggest thing I'm having right now is suicidal thoughts and brain fog. But menopausal women, premenopause being one of the higher at-risk groups of folks for suicide attempts. And then you add, so I'm only speaking for myself here. So menopausal. And then, like I said, I was just recently exposed to mold in an AC unit in my house that had been blowing on me for the past 2 months. I had gaslit myself because I didn't want to admit that there might be a possibility in the house because it's ridiculously expensive. It can get time consuming. It can totally upheaval your life, right? If you find that you've got mold in your house and you don't know where it's coming from. Luckily, I mean, the minute I turned on that air unit and it hit me and I could smell it and all the alarms were going off in my brain and my body, sure enough, we took it down, opened it up. It was full of water. There's no bueno. So we'll be doing things different going forward. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're a woman, perimenopause, menopause, or someone who's been exposed to mold, or you have Lyme disease or MCAS, inflammation, right? There's something I've been trying to get started in the world is stop calling people crazy. Instead, say your brain inflammation is showing. Because once we've been called crazy, it's really, really hard for us to get that stigma washed off. And I know, speaking as a healthcare professional, it's very, very hard for me to talk about that sort of thing, especially even in another like professional group setting, because I don't want people to take me less serious. I don't want people to no longer think that what I'm saying is not valid or relative, which it is. It absolutely 100% is. You know, for someone like me who functions really, really well, like 90% of the time, 5% of the time, and 5% of the time, like I'm talking about suicide. So, you know, what do you do with folks like that? You know, I personally won't go on medications for that 5%. I personally, right, like don't say those things outwardly to anybody else but my husband because I don't want to be discredited. I don't want to be looked at as a practitioner who doesn't know what they're talking about because I have overcome so much in my life, you know, reversed 2 autoimmune diseases, put Lyme disease in remission, have detoxed mold now multiple times, lost over 100 pounds, 2 stints in the psych ward. And it's tough. And I'm so glad that I have the tools that I have now because when those voices start creeping up in my head again of this is too hard, you should just take yourself out, I know what's going on and I can go, no, no, no. That's the mold talking. That's the inflamed brain talking. That's not Heather talking. You actually don't want to leave. You love your life and things are amazing. And it takes a little free frame. And unfortunately, I'm having to reframe 10, 15 times a day. Now, within the past week, it's gone down to about 5 because I'm about 3 weeks into my detox from removing the mold source out of my home and then doing my mold detox, all the things I know how to do. But then you add, like I said, menopause on top of that and hormones that are going awry. It's a double whammy for folks. And so if you are in one of those boats, as you know, if you're perimenopausal, menopausal, or like I said, you know that you've been exposed to mold or Lyme or something else, or maybe the combination of the both, break the stigma and make sure that you're getting some help, making sure that you're digging deeper with somebody because maybe you haven't been diagnosed with mold yet. Maybe you haven't been diagnosed with menopause yet. Maybe you haven't been diagnosed with Lyme yet. But maybe all the symptoms that you have is cognitive issues, you know, forgetfulness, forgetting words, walking into a room, not remembering why I walked into the room, and suicidal thoughts. Either way, dig deeper. There are answers out there. You don't have to do this alone. And I think the more we break through this stigma and we continue to talk and support and talk and to support, hopefully we don't have to lose another amazing practitioner like Beth because I didn't know her real well. I was a huge fan of her work, still am, and I was just in awe of what she built in spite of the health challenges she had, you know, as a practitioner who has health challenges, right? Like, I see you, sister. And it rocked me a little bit, you know, that if someone like her, I don't even know where I'm going with this, you know, is there hope for the rest of us? But I do believe there's hope. And that's the reason why I'm still putting out this episode. There's a reason why I'm talking about this before this episode. How fortuitous that I'm also dealing with this freaking mold and this brain that I'm dealing with right now as well, so that I can talk to it from that standpoint. You're not crazy. I don't care if your labs say you're normal. If you don't feel normal, don't, you know, stop with the gaslighting, stop gaslighting yourself, get help. And so, you know, you've already seen 20 practitioners. Great. You've learned 20 things that don't work. What's your alternative? To lay in bed and just wither away, die, give up? No, you've got this one freaking life. Pull yourself back up by your bootstraps, get back out there and see somebody else. Not them, see somebody else. You know, continue to Google. I mean, back when I was going through this stuff, I had to dig a lot deeper to get answers. These days, the answers are just scratching a little bit below the surface. Don't give up and make sure that we're continuing to spread the awareness, sharing, talking about this stuff openly so that people can feel safe, feel heard, not be afraid that we're going to be dismissed, ran out of town on a rail, put, in the psych ward. Because like I said, for me, that 5%, that's not worth, psych ward's not going to do anything for me. Neither are antipsychotics and antidepressants for that 5%, especially in someone like me, where a lot of those medications have the opposite effect. So I really want to create a space, like I said, where people can talk about their struggles, especially if you are a woman business owner. Even men can't talk about their emotions openly either without being criticized. So, I want to create a safe space for people to say, hey, this is what's going on with me today. These are my fears. This is what I'm dealing with. And please don't think less of me. Please don't lock me up. Please don't cancel me. So, without further ado, enjoy, my friend, and I hope you learn lots. Thanks for joining us on another amazing episode of the Lyme Boss podcast. I'm Heather Gray, aka the Lyme Boss. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner, and I like working with fast-paced professionals who have mystery digestive issues, right? Brain fog, lack of energy. Actually, there's no term in the English language for the exhaustion that you feel, right? Could it be undiagnosed Lyme and mold? I know it was for me. And I love getting to the root cause, right? Instead of throwing band-aids at symptoms. And this, even though I am the Lyme Boss, and this is the Lyme Boss podcast, this is not just geared for people with Lyme disease. This is geared for anybody who's dealing with any kind of chronic mystery illness or just wanting to feel your very best, right? Because when you get to the root cause of things, it doesn't matter whether it's Lyme disease or cancer or diabetes or you fill in the blank, right? If you get to that root cause, it doesn't matter what it is. This is all going to help all those types of folks. So don't tune out just because you don't have Lyme. This, trust me, this will apply to you, especially if you're having health issues that are kind of mysterious in nature and you're stuck, right? So that's why I'm so excited to have Ms. Beth O'Hara from Mast Cell 360 joining us today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather. I'm really excited to be having this conversation because we're going to talk about Mast Cell Activation Syndrome. And this is just still new on the scene, but pre-pandemic, up to 17% of the general population were dealing with this. Most people have no idea. It's much higher post-pandemic. We don't have population studies yet, but we know that that was a big trigger. And now, when I talk with my colleagues in this area, we really think that well over 75% of people dealing with chronic health conditions are dealing with mast cell activation. So we can get into why, but I just wanted to just put right at the beginning here why this is so critical to know about.
Absolutely. It's huge. That's why I was like, okay, who's the expert on this? We have to have him on here because it recently smacked me upside the head something hard not too long ago. And, a lot of clients that I've worked with that, are down to eating one food and can't take supplements. And it's just like, what do you do with this person? So it's a fascinating topic. And let's get into your background. Like what kind of a practitioner are you and how did you get into the mast cell stuff?
Well, I call myself a functional naturopath. I do consulting, and I consult on cases where people are dealing with mast cell activation syndrome, typically mold toxicity, and then there's often a tick-borne layer as well. And the way I got into it was I was actually going to go to medical school out of college, but I had, like a lot of people listening, all these mystery health issues, but I had them from an early age, and they kept piling up and piling up. And when I look back, well, we were living in an old farmhouse that my parents were renovating. We were living in the country. I was bit by ticks all the time. And there was quite a bit of chronic stress in my childhood. So that's a perfect storm for these things to develop. And so even as a young age, I was having some of the classic mast cell symptoms that not everybody has, but I had the allergy type symptoms, hives, itching, rashes, scratching my eyes nonstop, scratching my skin till I bled kind of symptoms. And then there were some other hits. I had some car accidents and then chronic fatigue set in. And by the time I got to college, I really had burned the candle at both ends, being an overachiever, doing
Type
too
A
much.
personality.
Exactly. And when I got to my senior, and I have full scholarship to medical school, I had to turn it down, Heather.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh, is this my life? And I kind of coasted through my senior year, graduated, and just kept crashing and crashing and crashing with fatigue and brain fog and anxiety. It developed into extreme sound sensitivity
mhm.
and light sensitivity. I would have these internal tremors to where I would wonder if there was a mild earthquake, but I knew we didn't get that many earthquakes. So, and I later learned, that's often associated with mold toxicity. And it took a long time to put the pieces together. And then these food sensitivities developed, and the supplement sensitivities. And I got down to about 10 foods. And I got to where I wasn't tolerating supplements. And so there was so much compounding. And then I learned first about histamine and histamine intolerance. And I started shifting my diet to a lower histamine diet. And a lot of this itching that I would have, especially at night, and this nighttime waking started to improve. I had severe insomnia. It started to get a little bit better. And I was doing better, but I knew there had to be more because that alone wasn't fixing it. And then I started learning about mast cell activation syndrome. Now, this was years ago before it even had a diagnostic code. It was still kind of in a theoretical phase. And when I looked at the list of symptoms, I said, oh my gosh, that's me. And the more I drilled into it and learned about these mast cells, I learned that it's not the mast cell activation syndrome. We can talk about how that's defined here in a minute. It's what is driving this immune dysregulation that we have to think about. But these mast cells are in almost every tissue in our bodies except the retina. And their job, they're covered in all these receptors, and their job is to sense everything, every molecule of food, every breath of air that we're breathing and what's in that. And what's really fascinating about them as well, so they're in the heart tissue, they're in the GI tract in huge numbers, they're in the sinuses, they're in the tissues around the eyes, in the bladder, you name it except the retina, they're there. They also line the whole nervous system. And so they even respond to our thoughts and our feelings, which I
I was
find
just going to ask when you
fascinating.
said they had these sensors all over them, they're sensing things. I'm like, I'm wondering if an empathic person, a more sensitive person, would also then be more, predisposition to have the mast cell stuff. Have you seen a correlation?
I see a huge correlation, especially empaths who have had trauma
Yeah.
and chronic stress. And so that's kind of that with mold and tick-borne infections is a perfect storm for this. And then what they do is they regulate all kinds of things. They're one of the major conductors of the immune system because they're at this interface between the outside world and the inside of our bodies. They're at the interface of the nervous system and the immune system, the GI tract, hormone system, all of that. So when we're talking about mast cells, we talk about them kind of in isolation, but they're not isolated from the rest of the body. They're really these interfacing cells, which is why they're so critical to pay attention to. And then the other piece to know about them is they have over 1,000 different chemicals in them. One of the best well known is histamine, but they have cytokines. And so those are cell signalers, and people know that word now. And they have prostaglandins and tryptase and all kinds of other chemicals in them. We're still learning about some of the processes of all these. So they're one of the most complex cells and one of the longest lived. They can live well over a year in our bodies. A lot of cells turn over quickly. So what happens is when we've had chronic infection, toxicity is also another one. Sometimes people get hit if they've had a lot of chemical exposures. And if we've had chronic stressors, then it can dysregulate the cell signaling. And a lot of what these chemicals do that the mast cells produce is create inflammation, or they're creating some kind of communication signal to the nervous system, the immune system, hormone system, so on. And so this is why it's been so mystifying. And it's just barely starting to enter into medical schools and being taught at this point. But because these mast cells are in so many locations in our bodies, because they have over 200 sensing receptors that could be oversensitive, they could be dysregulated and overly triggered by something like broccoli. Or, fragrance is a big one for people. A lot of times people who have the chemical sensitivity aspect of this are holding the breath going down the laundry detergent aisle, or when they get, in an Uber, they get in an elevator. And then we have over 1,000 different chemicals, and you can think about, okay, we're looking at location, what receptors are being activated, what chemicals are being released. Then we have an almost infinite number of possibilities. But here's the way it's defined if people have mast cell activation issues, is that there are symptoms in 2 or more systems. So we can think about the GI tract, we've got GI issues, and like you mentioned before, brain fog, or we could have skin symptoms and bladder symptoms, or any combination. Usually people have numerous symptoms involved. It's not usually just 2 systems. They might have heart palpitations, they might have anxiety or sleep issues, depression, they may have bladder burning, they could have diarrhea, constipation, GI discomfort, nerve pain, swelling around the eyes. There's all kinds of ways that it could show up. And so I do have a symptom survey we can talk about a little bit, and people can take a look at. And then it waxes and wanes. So the symptoms tend to get worse and a little better, worse and a little better. They flare. There's this flaring that goes on with it. But it can be with or without these allergy symptoms. It can be with or without anaphylaxis. And it can be with or without this hypersensitivity that we talked about, this down to one food, or this extreme sensitivity to the world. So I think of people being in 3 categories that have mast cell issues. They might be hypersensitive, or they're just sensitive, which means they have sensitivity to some foods and supplements, or they could be robust. And these are people who are fortunate enough to be able to take whatever supplements or medications they may need. And they're okay with foods, but they're still getting these symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely fell into that category. All these years, I always had all the other symptoms, but I never had an issue with, I mean, of course, gluten and dairy, that's a given, but I never had other food sensitivities, and I never had, issues with any supplements. I mean, I could take supplements by the handfuls, but man, what happened to me like a month ago was a completely, and I actually kind of thank God for it, because it helps me to understand, right, what the people who are more sensitive go through when it comes to something like that, because I was always just kind of like, I can relate to you in a lot of different ways with my history of Lyme disease and mold toxicity, but I can't relate to you with this histamine, this overhistamine, itchy, red, blotchy, swollen, response. And man, that is no fun.
That's not fun. No, and some people do get those intense skin symptoms. Other people never have any skin symptoms. So some people have mouth burning. So there's all these different ways, or sinus swelling. There's all these different ways that it can show up. And there's lots of things that can trigger these mast cells, but the biggest triggers we've seen are the mold toxicity, which has been in epidemic levels, tick-borne infections, which are epidemic levels, and chronic stress. And we just came out of, oh my gosh, this, 3 years of intense stress and uncertainty that piles on to the other stress that people have in their day-to-day lives. So that's why this condition's exploding. Now, the good news is there's a lot that can be done about it. And particularly focusing on things that calm these mast cells. So these receptors can be almost reprogrammed, or I think of like covering them so they're less sensitive with different agents. And this is where things like quercetin is helpful. A lot of the protocols that were put out there to help
With COVID.
were mast cell protocols. Then there's a big thing with the antihistamines and using quercetin, using zinc. So a lot of these regulate the immune system and they regulate mast cells. The other thing that's really critical is nervous system signaling, because when we really drill down to it, these mast cells are sensing, am I safe? Am I safe? Is that fragrance safe? Is that pathogen safe? Is that toxin safe? Am I safe? And so we can literally send safety messages through the nervous system to also help calm the mast cells. And it's this two-pronged approach, particularly when people are really flaring and they're struggling to get onto protocols to address mold toxins and Lyme. And that's one of the pieces I've really wanted to hit on for the people listening to this, is that if you're having trouble with getting binders on board or trying antifungal, whether it's supplements or medications, or you're having trouble with Lyme protocols, a lot of time what's happening is either we're increasing the excretion of toxins with some of these detox protocols, or as we're killing things off, like if there's mold colonization and there's actually mold that's growing in somebody's body, which isn't that uncommon, or we're killing off these tick-borne pathogens, they're going to release more toxins as they're dying. And then guess what? If the mast cells are already kind of hair on fire, then that's going to make them more hair on fire. You know, they're going to feel they're protecting us. And so they're going to go even more into protection mode. And that's a really critical understanding to have as well, is that the mast cells themselves are not the problem. They're really in this protection um, space for us. That's what they're doing, is protecting us. It's what's triggering them underneath. And then our perception of all of that and how we're addressing it, how we're dealing with it mentally, emotionally. But when people are really struggling with those protocols, what we want to do is take a step back and soothe and calm those mast cells and come into more of a place of safety, biochemically, emotionally, mentally, physically. And then people can progress and the protocols tend to go a lot smoother.
It's so frustrating because I teach a little bit of somatic experiencing work and I teach some breath work in my course. And it's nuts how it gets dismissed because it's so simple, right? And it's not a pill. We're so programmed that there's something wrong. So give me another pill. And even in functional medicine, right? Give me another supplement. You know, I worked with a gentleman for over a year and my anxiety is through the roof. Do you have another supplement for me? I'm like, no. Have you done your exercises today? Have you moved your body today? Have you spent 5 minutes on meditation? No, no, no. I'm not giving you another supplement because that's not how this is going to work. Like I'm not doing you any good if you're not going to do what I teach you. And so, but I was kind of one of them too, you know, back in the day. I'm like, breath work. If breath work worked, you know, I breathe every day. Like, I don't understand, you crazy hippies. But no, there's a lot of science backed behind a lot of this, you know, whether it's somatic experiencing work or there's all kinds of ways to retrain the nervous system, retrain the brain, right?
Yeah.
But don't dismiss it because it's simple. Like, it is magical. It's powerful. It's crazy how beneficial this stuff is.
And you're right, there is so much research. I really go into this in the course I developed called the Mast Cell Nervous System Reboot. And it was particularly designed for people who were having trouble tolerating things. They're having these sensitivities, to just get this comprehensive look and then to learn about the various tools and to be able to choose the various tools that are out there and to be able to choose what tools could work for them. And so somatic experience is a wonderful place to get started, and breath work and things like that. And then sometimes people get triggered when they're trying to take a deep breath. And that happens when we're really locked into this. We can think of it like a fight or flight state or sympathetic nervous system state. And so it feels safer to not change. It feels safer to stay the same because change feels different, feels scary. And so sometimes we have to enter in different ways. And that's really the key. There's so many different ways that these chronic conditions show up, so many ways that mast cell activation can show up, and to find what's going to work for that individual person. And we've really found in the mast cell population, there's not a lot of one size fits all. And so I know you see that in your work as well. And it's really unique to that person's symptoms, their background, what is triggering them. And then we have the whole environmental piece. And are we in an environment that has clean air, and are we in an environment that has mold, that has off gassing and VOCs and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still think he was living in some mold as well, even though the inspector gave him a clean bill. We all kind of, those of us who've been in this world know long enough to know that there's not a lot of mold inspectors out there doing the job correctly. And so, hindsight's 2020, looking back at it now, I'm like, ooh, I think he was still living in mold at that time too. So the struggle is real.
Well, it is, and most mold inspectors are trained to look at what might make a college athlete sick, or somebody who's really in good health. But the level of mold that makes somebody who already has a tick-borne infection ill is less. So sometimes we've got to improve air quality, or get in there and be more diligent than what a normal mold inspector would look for.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a great time. We're going to pause real quick, and when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into, some of the things that we can do. We can maybe, dive deeper into the brain retraining, but just diving deeper into this subject because it's a fascinating subject, and like I said, it's becoming more and more common, and there's not a lot of people out there talking about it. So if you want to learn more, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
When you're facing painful symptoms, a diagnosis of chronic Lyme, or an autoimmune disease, it can be overwhelming to navigate. You already know mainstream medicine doesn't have the tools to support you, and often even alternative medicine can become a maze of options without sustained results. Modern living puts significant stress on our systems. To counter this, we need a holistic approach, utilizing the latest technology and guided by physicians with decades of clinical experience. This is biological medicine. The Biomed Center in Scottsdale, Arizona is one of the most comprehensive clinics in the world, incorporating the latest diagnostics available, such as full-body MRIs, computer regulation thermography, heart rate variability, toxin screenings, and along with hormone and gut testing, they achieve the broadest look at all systems of the body. Customized protocols are developed by physicians who have treated thousands of patients in chronic disease by optimizing their biological performance. Save yourself years of suffering and searching with a visit to the Biomed Center, Scottsdale. The future of medicine is here.
Imagine having an extra hour in your day. With Carol Bike, it's possible in just 5 minutes. You experience what hours of traditional cardio can't match, thanks to scientifically engineered, AI personalized workouts. It's not about working out longer, it's about working out smarter. Every session is tailored to your fitness level, making it perfect for anyone, regardless of age or ability. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to precision with workouts that are scientifically proven to boost your health and fitness in 90% less time than regular cardio. Who doesn't want that? Less time working out and still get the amazing benefits? Yes, please. Scientifically proven to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes by 62%, lower blood pressure by 5% with just 3 short workouts a week. Feel the benefits of Carol Bike for yourself, risk-free for 100 days. And if it's not for you, return it and get a full refund. Carol Bike is more than a time saver, it's a life enhancer. Make sure to go to carolbike.com, that's CAROL bike.com, and use coupon code RHB to receive $100 off. Make sure to take the next step in your healing journey with your Carol Bike. Fantastic. Welcome back. Man, if you missed the first half, you missed a lot. It was amazing. Incredible. So many knowledge bombs. Thank you, Beth. And we're just going to go in a little deeper, if you will.
So I want to come back to this symptom survey I mentioned before, because
Absolutely.
people are going to want to know.
The ones that you were naming off, I was like, oh, that sounds like Lyme. Oh, that sounds like mold. That sounds like Lyme and mold. Like it's tough. That's what makes this whole area really tough to work in, because you have to tease it apart to find out, what is it?
Right. And so if somebody has any kind of chronic condition, Lyme, mold toxicity, any form of autoimmunity, any cancer history, if they've had Ehlers-Danlos, if they have POTS, then we definitely want to look at mast cell activation syndrome. But sometimes people don't have any of those, but they still have a variety of different symptoms. So I do have a symptom survey on our website, and it's totally free, and people can go on there and just rate their symptoms. And the more symptoms people have, the more likely they have mast cell activation issues. And that's based on the studies that were associating symptoms with mast cell activation, so where people had a clear diagnosis. Now, I also want to just briefly mention that the diagnostic criteria is really new. I don't diagnose myself because I do consulting. We don't treat or prescribe in our clinic, but we do look at a lot of cases and make recommendations. And um, but this diagnostic criteria was just established in 2016, and it's still being debated. So that's not a long time compared to things like type 2 diabetes or Alzheimer's and these types of conditions. And so a lot of people are falling through the cracks, is all I want to say with that. There's still a lot of people that are being missed. The testing is very tricky. There's only about a dozen mediators that can be tested out of over 1,000. And then the other piece is that the testing, a lot of the labs like Quest and LabCorp, they don't have the equipment to do the testing properly. And so sometimes we're getting false negatives and things like that. So there's that piece to consider a lot. And the other piece to consider is that this is so newly out there that people that it was still not hardly taught in medical schools, first of all. And people that went to medical schools were taught about a really rare condition called mastocytosis. And that's a rare genetic condition. A lot of times practitioners will never see a case of that. And so I just want to share that for people who are going to go talk to their physician or other medical practitioners, that you may hit some walls there, and just to expect that there's a lot of education that still needs to be done. And so a lot of times people have to self-educate, and they have to advocate for themselves, just like we're seeing in tick-borne infections
I
and
was just
mold
going to say
toxicity and
Lyme
so
are
on.
some of the most sophisticated advocates because they've had to. I mean,
Right.
my disease just got recognized last year by the CDC.
Yeah.
Something that I've had for over 28 years of my life just got recognized last year. So yeah, Lyme clients are some of the most sophisticated advocates out there.
Yeah. And people with mast cell as well. So I just want to encourage people. And so moving into what to do about this. So typically there's a multi-prong approach. And I developed a method I call the MC360 method. And this is after working with directly and overseeing over 1,000 cases. And we have some other consulting practitioners in our practice as well. So we take this team approach. In this method, we've already talked about this calming phase. So we're calming the mast cells, we're calming the nervous system, and we're cleaning up our environment. We're looking at what might have been missed that's triggering. And then we also look and see if people are being triggered by food. Some people have histamine intolerance with mast cell activation, some people don't. Some people are triggered by other types of foods, lectins, oxalates, salicylates. So we spend time really calming everything down before we go into addressing mold. And so that's kind of level 2, is a gentle detox approach. The reason we do that is because if we jump right into detoxing mold and the mast cell flaring is all the way up here at the top, then people are going to naturally be flaring even more. And they usually don't have room for that. So we've got to bring everything down a few notches. Now, what do we use for mast cell calming? There are hundreds and hundreds of options. Some of the typical standard starter points are quercetin. And then I really love perilla seed extract, or paramine is another
Heard
product.
about that.
And the reason is because it has both luteolin and rosmarinic acid, and those are known to stabilize mast cells. There was just an article that came out January 2024 looking at rosmarinic acid helping to stabilize IgE receptors on mast cells. And things like zinc, vitamin D, and sometimes it takes a while to work through the right synergy for people. And so it's rarely just one or two agents. You're looking at a synergy that's going to bring things down more. So usually start by looking at what people have tried already, what they're taking right now, and then how can you round that out. Another really interesting one for mast cells, if somebody has low blood pressure, is baking soda. And that's a bicarbonate. And so it's not, a lot of people think about it as like an alkaline thing, but it's actually bicarbonates help calm a pathway that produces inflammation and can trigger mast cell activation. So that's why sometimes people are flared if they'd use some baking soda, it can calm some things down. So there's lots of uh, little tips and tricks around all of that, or clinical pearls. Now, once things are calmed down, some people aren't going to be totally calm. They're not going to be totally out of these symptoms because they still have these triggers. But if you can bring it down a good 10, 20, even 25%, it makes a huge difference moving into the other protocols. And then what we found is that if the tick-borne infections are not acute, if they are acute, then that needs to be addressed. But if they're chronic, then typically addressing mold toxicity is much more effective moving into that next. And a big part of the reason is because one, the mold is greatly disruptive to every system in the body. And whereas bacteria and viruses need us alive to be able to replicate, mold does not. And mold actually, if it's colonized in us, this is something nobody wants to talk about or think about, but mold is a decomposer. And so we really want to be addressing that mold toxicity. Sometimes the immune system will re-regulate as the mold is addressed. And we've seen that around 30% of cases, sounds like you've seen this, looks like you see this too.
Oh, I've been screaming it from the mountain for years because so many Lyme people, they get that diagnosis and so they go right into treatment. I'm like, you got to take care of these other two things first.
Yeah.
I also have them rule out cavitations and sleep apnea because those are two other huge barriers to health of them getting better. But thank you. Yes, it's the exact same thing I've been screaming for a long time because mold is insidious. It's crazy how difficult it is to get somebody better if they haven't addressed the mold.
Right, right. And because it disrupts our the liver, the kidneys, it affects the endocrine system, the thyroid. I mean, you name it, it's affecting our bodies. Sometimes adults, about 30% or so, will recover from the tick-borne infections when the immune system re-regulates. Now, about 70% have to go on and address that layer. In children, it's reversed. We tend to see about 70% of children really rebound after addressing mold and mycotoxins. And there's less colonization in children, so it can be easier for them. And then from there, you go into what I call the more advanced protocol. So this is working with those tick-borne infections. Sometimes there might be a parasite load or something like that. One of the other things I'm going to throw out there that's so popular to talk about is SIBO. And SIBO, for people, some people can do a SIBO protocol and they're so much better and they're great. And that may have been tipped off by food poisoning or something like that. But I see a lot of cases where that SIBO is just so chronic and no matter what people do, they're not getting rid of it. Well, a lot of times what's happening is mycotoxins, they get cleared through the liver and some of them through the kidneys. But when they're cleared through the liver, they dump from the bile into the GI tract. And then those mold toxins are going to just keep dysregulating that microbiome because they're dysregulating the immune system that keeps all of that in check. So if you've got chronic SIBO, something to think about is that it's highly likely that there's a fungal layer. And then a lot of times there'll be fungal colonization in the GI tract as well.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. I've never actually addressed SIBO by itself because I usually found that after doing a mold protocol and starting to rebuild the gut, that seems to kind of take care of itself. So that's why. Fascinating. Awesome. So we're getting closer to the end here. So what are some more more pearls you'd like to dump on this. This has just been absolutely fascinating. Like, I don't know. The more complex, the better for me. I love puzzles and I love seeing patterns, and it is such an amazing feeling, right? When you get people, it's sad because people think, well, I've gone to 20 different practitioners and I've tried 30 different things and nothing works. No, those are all the things that don't work for you. Like, how beautiful it is it that you've now, like, next, right? You've weeded that out, and now we're on to the next thing, because it's just going to get whittled down to where you do, if you do not give up, you will find that combination that works for you. So beautiful that you said that there are hundreds to choose from, and that, you know, that there's just finding that right combination for the person. So beautiful. Thank you for bringing that in.
Yeah, I'd love to touch on a couple other areas. One is salicylates. And salicylates, this is only about 20% or so of people that come into our practice have salicylate issues. But these are people who keep reacting to herbs, all kinds of herbal products they're having trouble with. They're having trouble with foods a lot of times. And the symptoms can look similar to mold toxicity, Lyme, and mast cell activation. And it's one of the more tricky food intolerances to tease out. But it coincides with mold toxicity because salicylates are cleared through one of the major liver pathways that also clears mold toxins. And that pathway is called glucuronidation for anybody who's interested in that. And these, and it's cleared by a few other pathways as well that can be hit by mold. But salicylate intolerance, if you're struggling with herbs, but you can take medications, or maybe you're struggling with herbs, but you can take something like zinc, vitamin D, something that's not an herbal, then working on that salicylate intolerance can really help just kind of bring that load down. And then getting the mold toxins cleared up is typically how people get out of that. So I just wanted to put that on people's radars because these
So
are the
that's
people
just
that are struggling.
it's just staying away from those herbs for a while. Is that how you get that calmed down, or?
You have to be very mindful about which supplements. So again, this is why it's so good that we have a lot of options. So for people who've struggled, and and I mentioned a lot of herbs before with the quercetin, the perilla, and things like that. If that's not worked for you, I just want to give people encouragement that there's a whole other category of things that support mast cells as well, like vitamin D and zinc and the baking soda, and there's a long list of things. Then lowering salicylates in foods. So some of the foods like berries are really high salicylate, rosemary, basil, and so on. But then there's some herbs like saffron and cilantro that are lower salicylate. Now, if somebody's going to do a low salicylate diet, you got to make sure you're still getting plenty of variety, because when people whittle their foods down too small, so I felt better and better at first, and then a few months into it, everything just, it was like all hell broke loose. And because you're not getting enough nutrients to really nourish the cells, and the mast cells have particular nutrients that they need also to support them. And so don't whittle yourself down if you can at all help it. But if you have, then know that there's a way out in terms of adding those foods back in. So that's one I just wanted to put on people's radar who are confused why they're struggling with supplements. That could be a possibility. Then to come back to the nervous system. So we talked about doing some of these different nervous system soothing techniques. And there's two parts of the nervous system. Well, I'm going to say three parts of the nervous system that a lot of times when people have gotten really deep into chronic conditions that they have to address. And one's the limbic system. And this is that fear emotion part in our brain. I'm sure you've talked about that plenty on here. And rewiring how we perceive our world. And there's different programs out there that are excellent at that. And then another one that often gets forgotten is the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve is so critical because it's the most complex nerve system. Well, if you think about how complex and how large that system is, because it comes from the top of the neck, around branches to the face, I can often tell if somebody has some vagal dysregulation just by tension around the eyes, around the edges of the nose, the mouth, that clenching in the jaw. But it also comes around to the vocal cords. And so often the voice will be really tight or kind of can be high, or there'll be a tension in here in the throat. There's other things that can cause that, but vagal dysregulation is one of those things. It innervates the heart, our breathing, and our whole GI tract. So pretty much I think of everything from the, about our eyes down to our bottoms. And if we think about how complex and how large that nerve network is, all the mast cells that line that. And so if we want to calm mast cell activation, we talked earlier about the mast cells are responding to thoughts, to our feelings. Re-regulating that vagal signaling is so key. And then the third piece is structural. And so you touched on sleep apnea, which is a huge one for nervous system and for health. And I also often think about if there's anything that is going on in the neck that could be pinching the vagal nerve. So up here, there's also a vagal nerve branch in the diaphragm. So if there's hiatal hernia or diaphragm locking, then there can be some pinching there. And so those are some ways if somebody just feels like no matter what they do, they can't get out of this dysregulation, they've really been working on it, to think about the structural side and could there be something going on with neck instability or the diaphragm?
Totally makes sense. And I can tell that you've done from the minute we got on here that you do your vagal work because your voice is very melodic and your presence is very grounded. And so it's like, oh, there's somebody who's doing her work.
It, I needed that work. It's not always been this way.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, yeah. No, that's incredible. Awesome. This has been amazing. You are just a plethora of beautiful information, and I can't wait to dig in deeper into your website and into the course that you have and the symptom survey, like all of it. Like I'm gonna geek out on it. Just because, like I said, I had a very recent brush with it myself. And, I've in the past, worked with clients that I just really couldn't get them over, before, like I said, this was really talked about, I couldn't get them over the hump, and there was always something that was in my way and I couldn't quite figure it out. And I know I had to deal with this mast cell stuff. So, I had the mold stuff down and the other stuff down, but there was just that something.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so glad that it's more and more people are talking about it, because there's way too many people out there suffering needlessly.
Absolutely. And I'm really grateful that you're helping to get this word out and looking into it, because we need so many more practitioners who are knowledgeable about this. And I just want to let people know about one other resource. So we have a lot of blog posts on our website people can dive into. And then if you're getting stuck with mold toxicity, we have the MC360 Mold Masterclass, and I have a basic and an advanced level, and you can go into that, and it really talks about mold toxicity from the perspective of mast cell activation and how to keep those mast cells calm while going into those protocols.
That's incredible. I love it. Like I said, I love how I was sitting around one day and I was like, what do I need to cover right now these days? And like literally 2 days later, I got my butt handed to me with this horrible reaction. And then I was on the MindShares, Facebook page of like, who in here is our mast cell experts, right? And then your name just kept popping up all over the place. So I love the synchronicities of it all. And I love being a part of such an incredible go-giver, mastermind program that is MindShare. And just thank you for everything that you're doing in the world right now, because it is a really complex, complicated, I'm having, there's that break fog. I still think I have a little bit of inflammation that I haven't quite gotten off my system since the flare. So I definitely see it every now and then. So it's like, oh, thanks for showing yourself. Another area to work in, but no, it's all good. I love tweaking and dialing in and going deeper. So I'm a dork that way. So then what's the best way for people to find you?
They can find our website at mastcell360.com. So it's M as in Mary, AST as in Tom, CELL360.com. And we have a consulting clinic, we have courses, we have free blog posts, and then we're on Facebook as well and YouTube. So we have channels there, and we have lots of videos and things people can dive into as well. So all kinds of resources. And we have a consulting clinic for people who need that one-on-one help on the mast cell side, and from that mast cell perspective to go into these detox protocols.
That's absolutely incredible. Beth, thank you for everything. Thank you for your time today, and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. There's so many people out there who need you. And everybody else, if you have heard one little thing that resonated with you today, make sure that you share, like, and subscribe, because that is how we get the word out. That's how we continue to bring the darkness into the light, right? Is by you helping us to share the word. So everybody else, make sure and have a healthy day. Thanks for joining us. And as always, if you were inspired by anything that you heard on today's show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. That's the only way that we help change people's lives and get this information out into the world so that change can begin one person at a time, the way that it did with me and changed my life so many years ago. Make sure too, right, if you really want to start changing your life, it starts with your diet. It starts with what's on the end of your fork. And if you want to start making changes, go to my website, www.renegadehealthboss, RENEGADE, health, HEALTHBOSS.com, and download your free ebook, your free cooking guide, Real Cooking to Real Life. And in there, you'll also find links to the videos. Don't just learn what to eat, but why, right? Don't just learn how to cook, but the reasonings behind why I use some of the tools that I do, the toxins. You've got to lower your toxic burden, and we can do that in the kitchen and with what you eat. So make sure that you pick up that free resource. It's amazing. And while we're at it, we got to do a little disclaimer. Anything that you hear on this show is for entertainment value only. You cannot hold Heather Gray, the Lyme boss, Discovering Health LLC, or Renegade Health Boss liable for any damages that may have occurred while you have tried something that you've heard on the show. This show also contains affiliate sponsorship and paid advertising, just a heads up. But to also know that no advertising gets on here without my approval first. It's usually products that I have tried and have my stamp of approval on it. So never fear when it comes to that. But yes, cannot hold me liable. Do not... this is for educational purposes only. Please make sure that you talk to your doctor before making any medical changes. And God bless. Stay tuned.